Yoshi. What started out as a simple power-up in Super Mario World immediately became a popular character from the Super Mario series. Yoshi would be so popular, in fact, that Yoshi would get a good line of video games.
The one most people know is Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. But before that, Yoshi got a few puzzle games. One simply called Yoshi, and the one we're looking at today, Yoshi's Cookie. This was released on the NES, Game Boy, and the SNES. But we're going to mainly look at the SNES version. Is Yoshi's Cookie an underrated puzzle game, or is this game bland like an Amish cookie? Let's find out.
Starting out as an arcade game called Hermetica, the initial arcade game was poorly received and sold off to Bulletproof Software. The company got the rights to the Super Mario license and slapped Yoshi and company into the game to make it appealing, while throwing in cookies too. That's really all the info I can find on this game's development. Upon starting, you're greeted with Yoshi, and you have 3 options to choose from. Action is your standard endless puzzle mode, Versus is the multiplayer, and Puzzle is a special mode exclusive to the SNES version. Your objective in action mode is to clear all cookies on the screen. Holding down the B button will speed up the cookies in all directions, but you mainly control a cursor. Once you hold A, you become locked. If you press any direction on the D-pad while holding A, you'll move every cookie on the ends of the cursor. You must make every cookie in a row the exact same in order to remove them, either vertically or horizontally. The only cookie that can be different is the Yoshi cookie, which functions as a wildcard of sorts. But these cookies will only spawn if you remove 5 cookies of the same type. The game consists of 10 rounds, with each round having 10 stages. Upon clearing 10 stages, you get a cutscene with Mario and Yoshi. It's possible to adjust the speed and music just like any other puzzle game of the time, but that's really it. The overall game is just boring. It takes a while for the game to really ramp up and challenge, and while micromanaging 2 sides of the board can be a fun challenge, the game really doesn't do much more to keep players engaged. I can't recall if I've ever played Versus Mode with a friend, but luckily Versus Mode does have computer players for the lonely players. In this mode, you can choose 4 different characters: Mario, Yoshi, Princess Peach, and Bowser. Each one has their own stats. Yes, in a puzzle game. Each character has their own attack duration, defense time, which is used to counterattacks, message time, which affects the speed that the game gives the player a message, and timer, which is the timer fuse. That can be quite a bit to take in going in blind. As for the mode itself, you have to be the first one to earn 25 points by making lines of cookies just like the main mode. Failing to make one line before the timer fuse expiring means that the player loses. Yoshi cookies also function differently here, as getting a row of them will execute a random attack on your opponent. Panic will shuffle the cookies randomly, Slave will allow one player to control another's cursor, and Blind will cover most of the board. Yoshi cookies can also change the point system, sometimes removing 7 points from your score bar. Once you wrap your head around this game mode, it's actually really addicting and fun, certainly more than the main game mode. It can actually be pretty hard too, and the ability to give each player their own initials can be a good laugh. Like, what exactly is an ass slave game? Actually, I think it'd be better if we didn't know. Puzzle mode is one that exists to test your skills with the game's mechanics. You're required to complete a series of puzzles with a limited amount of moves. It's just there, really. This could have easily been implemented into the other versions, and it isn't anything to write home about. If this sort of thing interests you, there are a total of 100 puzzles, and there are codes to take you to any of the 100 stages. But this isn't for me. There isn't much to the visuals and music either. The game looks fine, but it reuses a lot of assets from Super Mario World. Funny enough, in the 2-player mode, Yoshi bears a strong resemblance to his sprite work in Yoshi's Island, and Bowser also has his all-star Super Mario Bros. 3 look. Some assets are kind of ugly though, mainly Mario in the action mode. The music is also really annoying in that it has to restart every single time you clear a stage, and it can get really draining if you're clearing stages in a short amount of time.
Overall, Yoshi's Cookie is a cute game, but it really doesn't have much to offer. It is unique to other puzzle games, but it lacks the same thrills that something like Tetris and Dr. Mario offers. The game as a whole is just underwhelming, but it isn't awful by any means. Overall, I give the SNES version of Yoshi's Cookie a 6 out of 10. If you own a Super Nintendo and see this for a really low price, or get in a bundle, then it's worth a try. Otherwise, you should just get Tetris and Dr. Mario, or Kirby's Avalanche instead. Those games are much better. But wait, I'm not quite done with this game just yet. I've decided to take a brief look at the other two versions of this game. I mean, I might as well, right?
The NES game actually looks a little bit better than the SNES version. Mario dons a chef uniform for this game, and he looks good here. The sound might even be a little bit better, though these are all the same songs from the SNES version anyway, so it may just be a matter of preference. Aside from the obvious sound and graphical changes, this is still the same mediocre puzzle game, just on NES now, and with less features. The cool versus mode is still here, but it's missing the characters and even the ability to play against a computer player. Like I stated in the SNES review, the puzzle mode is missing too, so the overall package is an even more bare-bones experience than the SNES game. The NES version gets a 5 out of 10. As for the Game Boy release, it naturally looks the worst out of all three, but I won't hold that against the game, as the original Game Boy does not support color, so everything is in black and white. Though if played on a Game Boy Color, Advance, Advance SP, Super Game Boy, or Game Boy Player, color can be changed, though I prefer black and white for the sake of authenticity. The only real difference to point out between this version and the NES one is that the Versus mode is better. For starters, the game can be played with computer players once again. The characters no longer have stats, but there is another major change to the mode in this version. If you happen to own 4 copies of the game, 4 Game Boys, a link cable, and a 4-player adapter, you can play a 4-player game. That sounds awesome, but the odds of all that happening are very slim. Even back in the day, I feel like the chances of this happening were very low. Maybe someday I'll be able to have a great 4-player battle in this game, but not anytime soon. This version also gets a 5 out of 10. That base game is still too dull.
Okay, now I am finally done with Yoshi's Cookie. There was a Super Famicom re-release called Yoshi no Cookie Kudupon Oven Day Cookie that has an additional mode that teaches players how to bake real versions of the cookies in the game. But this game is incredibly rare and expensive, as only 500 copies were made. We'll just stop here. All in all, this was just a really bland puzzle game that I think isn't really worth your time or money. None of these versions were bad, but this game just could have been a lot better. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Banditex. I'll see you all in the next one.